Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies lost on Friday night to Dillon Brooks and the Houston Rockets. It was a storybook return for Dillon the Villain. Dillon had 26 points, hit a dagger three to put it away, even sealed the game further with a steal, and the Grizzlies dropped their fourth straight game. They lost their third game to the Rockets, and now they are once again licking their wounds and trying to regroup and figure out what can happen with the rest of the year, and of course look forward to Ja Morant's return, which is just one game away. On this episode, I'm going to mainly talk about the Dillon Brooks game. Also going to talk about Ja Morant's media comments that he made on Friday in his first time talking with reporters since he got suspended for 25 games. Before I do all that, just a word from Underdog Fantasy. If you want to play fantasy sports for cash, you can do that at Underdog Fantasy. It's something I enjoy doing. It's been a fun part of the NBA and NFL season for me. If you use promo code FBBF when you sign up, Underdog Fantasy will match your opening deposit up to $100 unless you live in Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, or Alaska, and they will match that opening deposit up to $500. So if you want to give it a try, go ahead and use that promo code FBBF or click the link in this episode's description. All right, I highlighted how these matchups against the Rockets were going to be huge for the Grizzlies, where worst case scenario, you had to get a split, but you had the opportunity of winning two games and cutting into the lead of a team ahead of you in the standings, and one of the teams that you've circled is probably maybe one that you can catch once Ja Morant comes back. Well, that dream is no more, as the Rockets won both games against the Grizzlies last week. The Rockets are now 8 games ahead of the Grizzlies, and of course won the season series by winning their first 3 matchups. That means the Grizzlies are in effect 9 games behind the Rockets. The odds of catching the Rockets are remote. And now you're stuck with a team that's 6-18 and excited about Ja Morant's return, but this was kind of the final nail in the coffin of maybe we can turn the season around. I mean, maybe you win 8 of 9. You put together 4 or 5 straight in a row at some point. You can see where you're at. I think most people have circled, let's just get back to 500. But I mean, the Grizzlies are 12 games under 500. So it's certainly feasible. They could go something like 32-20, over the next however many games or whatever it needs to be in Ja's final 57 games. But these losses were especially painful, and I think for a franchise, for the front office, for the coaching staff, for the players, to lose like this, especially excruciating. I mean, the Grizzlies are 1-11 at home, and the guy they told to go away, the guy they refused to engage with in free agency, Dillon Brooks, comes back into your house and scores 24 points in the second half and wins the game. And you're now 0-3 against Dillon Brooks already this season. You're also 0-1 against Tyus Jones. You're 0-2 against Kyle Anderson. Haven't played DeAnthony Melton yet. The nature of being ahead by 17 points and seeing that lead evaporate. You're up by 10 at halftime. The 17-point lead was in the first quarter. This was the Rockets' biggest comeback of this season. This was the Grizzlies' biggest blown lead of this season. For the second straight game, you were down by 1 going into the fourth quarter. For the second straight game, you could not make three-pointers as a team collectively. Terrible shooting numbers, sub 30% on your three-point attempts. For the second straight game, the Rockets got 15 offensive rebounds. They tied their season high for offensive rebounds in consecutive games against the Grizzlies. So you're getting punished on the glass. The Grizzlies in this Friday night game actually did a pretty good job on their own end doing some offensive rebounding, but you still did not defensive rebound good enough. You didn't make three-pointers, and you could not give Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane any help. And meanwhile, a pariah for your franchise returns and gets the huge win, and he's the conquering hero. And you know it meant a lot to these Grizzlies players. I mean, there was trash talking going on, not from Dillon Brooks. He didn't trash talk till the final shot went in. It seemed like he was mainly keeping his nose clean and not talking. Desmond Bane got a technical foul in the fourth quarter after forcing a turnover on Dillon Brooks. He said something to the effect of, you can't dribble. Got a technical foul as a free point for the Rockets. We also got a delay of game penalty in the fourth quarter that was a technical foul. 2 free points to the Rockets in this close game. But this was a crushing, demoralizing loss where you give up that big lead and you have to deal with Dillon Brooks taking the victory from you. Dillon only had 2 points in the first half. It was 1 out of 9. Everything was going good. We were up 10. Dillon was struggling. Dillon made 9 out of his final 11 shots. He even had 7 rebounds. The 24 points Dillon scored in the second half, it's the second most points he's ever had in a half. The most points he's ever scored in a half was his 25-point second half in his rookie season. At the end of the year in a game against the Bulls, you might remember it, Dillon Brooks went off, and that's still the highest scoring half of his career. So this was the second highest scoring half of his entire career. This was tied for his season high in points with 26. He started getting it going when Zaire Williams was guarding him in the second half. Tough outing for Zaire Williams. Dillon seemed to be happy, he relished the opportunity to go one-on-one a couple times against Zaire, got warmed up, and then the rest is history. Now, there are a few kind of scapegoats, I feel like, for the Grizzlies. We've gotten tired of blaming the injuries. We blame, like Zaire, we blame Jake LaRavia, we blame the supporting cast. I like to blame David Roddy. Yeah, that's all true. None of them had very good games. But I do think the coaching staff, they didn't necessarily want to lose this game in the exact same fashion they lost the game on Wednesday. They did make adjustments so they didn't, find themselves in the same predicament. They didn't work, but I think they were shortening the rotation. I don't think Zaire Williams was going to play in this game until Derrick Rose gets hurt. Once Derrick Rose leaves with a hamstring injury, then Zaire Williams came in. He didn't play until there was 5 minutes left in the second quarter. And then he starts the second half. Taylor Jenkins was asked about it. He said they needed the extra playmaking. They needed an extra initiator. So I think they had adjusted and were like, okay, we can't screw around. They did still play Jake LaRavia. They did give Jake LaRavia a look. Jake LaRavia's net rating for this season when he's on the court is minus 28. The Grizzlies, if you don't know, that means the Grizzlies get outscored by 28 points per 100 possessions when Jake LaRavia's on the court this year. It's been a disaster. The last 2 games that Jake LaRavia played, games where the Houston Rockets got 30 total offensive rebounds. They got 13 of those offensive rebounds in Jake LaRavia's minutes. Poor Jake LaRavia got no rebounds in the last 2 games. I know rebounding's not all Jake's fault, but what are you doing out there, man? doesn't make threes, doesn't score, doesn't get rebounds. I mean, I guess you could have highlighted a few moments where it seemed like he played decent perimeter defense. But like the decision, I think, to play Laravia and Zaire again definitely raised our eyebrows. We're like, why isn't Conchar playing? Like, Conchar's no great shakes, but at least we know what he is. He's a pretty decent rebounder. I thought the Conchar absence was noticeable, especially after giving up all the offensive rebounds on Wednesday night. My thought was we just need we just need rebounders. And that is Conchar's calling card. I think it's fair to look at this game and be like, we're this shorthanded and Conchar and Xavier Tillman are getting DNPs. I think it's fair to wonder, like, are there trades imminent? Do we have something lined up? Like, Tillman has had a rough stretch of games, but Tillman is a guy the team has gone to start playoff games in consecutive seasons. And he's not even getting in the game. Now, the Tillman absence in this game makes a little bit more sense, or it's a little bit more excusable to me because they cranked up the Santi Aldama minutes and they cranked up the Bismack Biyombo minutes. In the loss to the Rockets on Wednesday, where you got destroyed on the boards, they went with like Jaren as the only big lineups. They went with Biyombo as the only big lineups. And you're like, why are we doing this with the players we have available? At the very least, like, Tillman is competent at a lot of things. He can probably rebound better than Laravia. He can defend better than most of our players, frankly. He's a good defender. But in the game on Friday night, they actually staggered Biyombo and Jaren and Aldama's minutes, so two of those guys would be on the court basically the whole game. So Tillman's absence, I guess, is a little more acceptable. If you've circled, these are the three bigs we're going to play in Aldama, Jaren, and Biyombo. Conchar's absence, maybe you just think, all things being equal, let's play a guy we're probably not going to trade immediately. And if they do think they might trade Conchar soon, all right, tiebreaker goes to Laravia, who had 2 points and 0 rebounds in his 10 minutes. Like, Jaren and Desmond, once again, did enough. They did not have as spectacularly as good games as they've had in previous games. Jaren finally snapped his streak of games making 50% or better of his field goal attempts. Jaren had 22 points. It took him 23 field goal attempts to get there. Desmond Bane scored 28 points. Desmond Bane had a career-high 13 rebounds. By the way, Desmond Bane's career-high 13 rebounds, he now has a higher regular season career-high in rebounds than Jaren Jackson Jr. does. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s regular season career high for rebounds is 12. If I were Desmond Bane, I would make fun of Jaren Jackson Jr. for this. But the problem, once again, was the supporting cast, and the problem was the quality of shots that Bane and Jaren were getting. There were no easy buckets in the second half, where the Grizzlies only managed to score 41 points against the Rockets. And the Rockets are a good defensive team. Their free agent acquisitions of signing Dillon Brooks, of signing Fred VanVleet, of hiring Ime Udoka have worked. They've 100% worked so far. This was one of the worst teams in the NBA last year, and now not only are they 8 games, virtually 9 games ahead of the Grizzlies in the standings, but they have a good defense. And a lot of that you would highlight is your coaching hire, the additions of Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. The Rockets were doing a great job guarding the Grizzlies, and it, I think, is a little bit easier to guard the Grizzlies when you have guys who can't shoot on the court with Jaren and Desmond. The Grizzlies got no fast break points in this game. Well, they got 4. I don't want to exaggerate too much. They had 4 fast break points in this game. In the second half, I think they had 1 easy shot as a team. Bismack Biyombo got a dunk. I can't remember who did the penetration and dumped it off to him. There was a Bismack Biyombo dunk. Basically every other shot, I went back and rewatched all the field goal attempts from the second half. They're all hard. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. with 3 or 4 guys around him. It's Desmond Bane hitting contested jumpers. Guys draped all over him. When Derrick Rose went out, the one guy on the team outside of Jaren and Desmond who could get past his man, basically, you had all these lineups where it's like no one's guarding Zaire. No one cares if they help off of Roddy. No one cares if they help off of Vince Williams Jr. No one's guarding Jacob Gilyard. I mean, the shooting numbers are just horrible for these guys, and it's been a season-long thing. As you know, the Grizzlies are the worst three-point shooting team in the NBA. And as much as I want to kind of blame, like, why is Zaire playing? Why is LaRavia playing? First of all, they didn't want to play Zaire. I maintain that. They didn't play Zaire until Derrick Rose went out with injury. That goes back to front office mistakes. I mean, the Derrick Rose signing, when healthy, he's been all right. Not good. Remember, they did not have to make a minimum signing. They had resources to sign players making more than the minimum. They had a full mid-level exception. They had an empty roster spot. They chose their best usage of that roster spot. The best usage of their financial resources was to bring in Derrick Rose, a guy who's very, very old and extremely injury prone. Most people have said, even though it's been publicly denied, he's brought in to be a mentor for Ja Morant. Has that part worked? I don't know. How do we judge that? Ja Morant hasn't been resuspended, so does that mean mission accomplished? But as far as Derrick Rose's contributions to winning, no. He's helped us win a few games. He's been unavailable for a bunch of games. I mean, I said on this podcast many times, in the 25 games Ja Morant's out, what happens when Derrick Rose and Marcus Smart are both unavailable? Because both of those guys miss lots of games. This is what happens. You lose. Maybe the ire, I feel like more of the ire of the performance of the players should be focused at David Roddy. I don't want to pick too much on everybody, but I feel like David Roddy gets a pass for whatever reason. He seems super likable. But David Roddy is not very good. And the thing David Roddy is good at is basically it's scoring at the rim. And he's good. He's quite good at it. He uses his broad shoulders, his unique, impressive physical frame to drive past guys, to get layups, to get dunks in the paint. He's shooting 70% at the rim, which is very, very good. He shot 70% at the rim last year, which is very, very good. The problem is, everywhere else, he's terrible at shooting. The numbers are striking. I mean, David Roddy in this game, he came off the bench. I mean, that was a huge thing for me. They finally started Vince Williams Jr. I mean, it's been as clear as day, plain as day to me. Vince Williams Jr. is the best player we have on the wing. Like, it's not close. That guy's a basketball player. That guy's a rotation level NBA player. He can help you. It's night and day when you compare him against your Zaires and even like your Conchars and your Roddies. But the Roddy shooting numbers, he's not a shooter. His shooting numbers are all theoretical, or the idea of him being a shooter is totally theoretical. He hasn't made three-pointers in the NBA. He hasn't made three-pointers in Summer League. He doesn't make three-pointers. He shot a good percentage on corner threes this year. Okay, that's one spot. Everywhere else has been bad, but not just three-pointers. He doesn't make two-pointers if he's not right in front of the rim. He's shooting 29% on three-pointers, but also on all two-pointers that are further than 3 feet from the rim. David Roddy on the season right now, 15 for 52 on two-pointers outside of 3 feet away from the basket. That's 28.8%. Then you throw in the 29% from three, it's just 29% everywhere, but within 3 feet of the basket. Last season, he was a little bit better. He was 35% on two-pointers that weren't within 3 feet of the basket. And, of course, last year he shot 30.6% on threes. So maybe when Ja Morant comes back and defenses focus more of their attention on Ja. He's going to get better looks, and he's going to raise those percentages from horrible to just very, very bad. David Roddy's not a great defender, not a good rebounder, and he's a terrible shooter. And that's like the good option of the young wings so far. That was air quotes. The pause was my air quotes. Like, Roddy shouldn't be starting games for a team. Of course, he's not our first choice. We know everyone's hurt. Luke Kennard's hurt for forever. Marcus Smart, it's been now coming up on 5 weeks. It's been 5 weeks. He's still out on the injury report. Hasn't cracked doubtful yet. But like, Roddy's not good. Zaire's not good. Jake LaRavia's not good. John Contra's getting DNPs. And you're dealing with this pretty awful situation of finding yourself in a nightmare start to the season. Another part of the bad start to the season, and something that really was a big issue in this game, was free throw discrepancy and fouling. And this was not a situation of like, we're getting a bad whistle. This has been consistent. The Grizzlies foul a lot. Jake LaRavia managed to foul 4 times in his 10 minutes. This team all year has fouled a lot. This team all year does not get to the free throw line. And one of the big reasons why you lose this game, why you blow this lead, is you're sort of gifting the Rockets free points at the line. The Rockets made 28 free throws. They were 28 out of 32, so elite free throw shooting numbers. They had 20 free throw makes in just the second half. The Grizzlies had 5 free throws in the second half. So you're not getting to the line. You're putting your opponent on the line. And then you're a bad three-point shooting team. I mean, one reason you're not getting to the line, you're taking 40 three-pointers. They took 43s, made 11, scored 96 points. And some of it, again, it's not surprising that we're struggling to score. It's not surprising that things bogged down in the third quarter. Just look at the players that we had to play. If you have a lineup with Jacob Gilyard, David Roddy, Zaire Williams, Aldama, and Jaren, I mean, Gilyard and Zaire and Roddy, those guys aren't scorers. Aldama, like, again, they played him more this game. I was happy to see they played him a little bit more. He had 11 points. He actually made 2 3-pointers. I mean, they went with Gilyard over Zaire, basically. But that goes back to the roster question. Gilyard had his moment where the Grizzlies started playing him. They won that game where he was starter. We thought, all right, we just need a guy who could dribble, who could spread it around. No, it's worn off. And that's another kind of roster question. Like, you knew there's no Ja Morant. We need a point guard, probably. Marcus Smart has an injury history. Derrick Rose has a massive injury history. We can't even depend on him, to contribute when healthy. That's more of a question mark. He has contributed when healthy. You missed him horribly when he went out of the game. But, like, they've chose to stick with Gilyard this whole time as opposed to trying to find someone better who could help you and who could play point guard. But like, Gilyard is just a non-entity on offense. And so if you're playing basically 3 non-scorers, if you're playing like Roddy and Zaire minutes have basically always been terrible. The Grizzlies, historically, this year and last year, when Roddy and Zaire on the court, not only are they not good at offense, they get destroyed on rebounding. And so this one was, for me, watching it in the second half, I'm just like, can we please somehow hang on? I had very little hope. When we were up 10 at the start of the third quarter, and it's like, all right, there's no Derrick Rose, we got Zaire out there, this is not going to work. And then you just saw, I feel like you saw the shots we were making, and you're like, that's not sustainable. That these shots keep going in, there's no way it's going to be sustainable. And eventually, the Rockets had a little bit of a run. Jaren had to sit down with foul trouble. Did he foul out? No, he did not. But like, you don't have enough on the rest of the roster. And my initial anger, I like to reemphasize this, my initial anger that like LaRavia and Zaire were playing and just how horrible they've been all year, They, as a coaching staff, they didn't want to do it. They were playing their guys heavy minutes. Like Bane played 40 minutes. That's what more can you ask for? They played Biyombo 33 minutes. Biyombo finally had like a pretty decent game, was very effective, more so in the first half. He had 10 points for the game, had 9 rebounds. Like Biyombo played 33 minutes. Aldama got those numbers back up, 26 and a half minutes. They played Vince Williams Jr. 30 minutes and they started him. Literally, it's everything I could ask for. There's just not enough on this roster. There's not enough on the roster. Vince, by the way, Vince Williams had an incredible first quarter. He was very active. He helped them jump out to that, it was 29-12 lead. Vince keeps making 3-pointers. Now, as excited as I am about Vince Williams Jr., as much as I strongly believe he's the best option to start until the whole team is healthy, and even once the whole team is healthy, you have Marcus Smart there, I assume Vince is going to get all or most of the minutes. Most of the minutes for the wing players among your Conchars, your Zairs, your Laravias, and Vince. Vince gets them all. Give them all to Vince. I don't particularly think that his shooting numbers are sustainable. I don't have any facts for why I don't think he can keep shooting this well, other than it feels too good to be true. That's where I'm at right now. Since that Dallas game, where he really broke onto the scene, that win on Friday night. It was the last time we had a Grizzlies watch party, by the way. Since the Dallas game on December 1st, Vince is shooting 46% from 3. He has made 2 or more threes in each of the last 3 games. I kind of think that's unsustainable, only because, again, feels too good to be true. He's been so good. He had some mistakes. I'm not going to say he's like a perfect player. I think he's a very erratic basketball player. He's a little bit turnover prone. The final Dillon Brooks steal was off of a Vince Williams Jr. inbounds pass. I mean, it was a tough place to inbounds it, the coffin corner as they call it, but like that was a turnover by Vince. Vince passed up an open look. I don't know if it was the right play. Final 2 minutes, Vince Williams has a wide open look on the wing. He has not shot the ball great from the wing this year, and he thought maybe that the defender, Shingu, would probably commit to him, and then he could leave it for a wide-open Roddy in the corner. He threw it to Roddy in the corner. Roddy still had an open look, but it wasn't maybe as clean as he thought it was going to be. So, like, you can tell me that Vince made the wrong play there. I believe you. My opinion is he's the best we have. Whether or not he's good, that is still a question mark that remains to be seen, but you can be nothing but, I think, encouraged by his play so far. He had 8 rebounds again. The guy rebounds. Been saying this for months. He's a basketball magnet. So he had 8 rebounds and 11 points, made 3 3-pointers, also had 3 assists, got 2 blocks and a steal. I mean, it's spectacular stuff from a guy on a 2-way contract who I think has really, earned his minutes. I mean, that is the silver lining. Like, what silver linings are there from the horrible opening to the season? Actually, I'll get to that right after this short break. Grizzlies fans in the Nashville area, don't miss Ja Morant's first game on Tuesday, December 19th. It's at 6:30 p.m., and the best way to watch it is with other Grizzlies fans at Noble's Beer Hall in Nashville. Join me and other members of Grizzlies Nation as we watch the Memphis Grizzlies take on the New Orleans Pelicans, and we welcome back Ja Morant. I will be giving away Grizzlies prizes. I have some holiday-themed prizes, some Grizzlies wrapping paper. We have some Grizzlies scarves. We have some signed Grizzlies photos that are going to be given away to people who show up. So be at Noble's Beer Hall. It's an early tip this Tuesday, December 19th, 6:30 p.m. See you there. All right, this season has been a disaster. Unmitigated disaster. What silver linings are there? I would say one silver lining is we've discovered that Vince Williams Jr. is someone that I think we can depend on in the rotation. When fully healthy, Vince Williams Jr. right now projects to be a rotation caliber guy that can be that connective piece on a good team. I think he might be the sort of guy who amplifies other good players. He might look even better when there are better players on the court with him. So we found Vince Williams Jr. Whether or not they work out some kind of full contract for him this year, they're going to try to get him, I assume, to get him on that contract that's called the Hinkie Special, named after Sam Hinkie, where you sign him to like 4 years at the minimum, where the first 2 are guaranteed, and then the next 2 are not. This is what Kenneth Lofton Jr. signed. By the way, Kenneth Lofton Jr., by all reports, is going to be waived. Everyone has just assumed this was going to be the case, that the writing was on the wall for that. But that's the same kind of contract. They're probably going to try to get Vince Williams Jr. to sign. Would Vince Williams Jr. sign it to lock in a few years of security? Honestly, I don't know. He might feel like, let's take this to restricted free agency. I can get more than this. I can get more than like a little cheap minimum deal. I mean, again, it's very small sample size of Vince being an impactful NBA player, but he's putting together a really nice reel over the last few weeks. But a silver lining for the Grizzlies. Vince Williams Jr. got the chance. Maybe he would not have gotten this chance if Marcus Smart is healthy, if Luke Kennard is healthy. Maybe Vince would have never gotten the opportunity to show the coaching staff and to show us what he can do. Another silver lining, which I'm now grasping at straws. Like, is this a silver lining? People are saying this is a silver lining. I'm not sure I believe it, but okay. The idea of clarity, it gives you clarity. And what clarity were you talking about? The clarity that the guys you have are not good enough. It gives you clarity that Zaire Williams is no good. That David Roddy, not good enough. John Conchar, not good enough. Jake LaRavia, not good enough. It gives you clarity. Kenneth Lofton Jr., throw him in there. Not good enough. It gives you clarity that, hey, you thought these guys could be the 7 through 12 guys on a team that advances in the postseason. Now, that's false. That's big time false. These guys are not good enough. I mean, maybe put Xavier Tillman in there. I don't know. I mean, Xavier Tillman, free agent to be, and they're showing no interest of playing him. If you would have asked basically anybody, like a month ago, who's the better NBA player, Bismack Biyombo or Xavier Tillman? I feel like it would have been like 80-20 people saying Tillman. 80-20, you know, like most people would have said Tillman. Now you have Grizzlies fans who are like, oh yeah, Biyombo's better. I don't think Biyombo's better. He's playing better right now. The last few times we've seen Tillman come in, he's been rough. But Tillman, it's a big question mark for me. What's going on? Why isn't he playing? And when he plays, why has he been so bad? But silver linings. We found Vince Williams Jr. We have clarity that we know these guys are not long-term keepers, probably. I mean, their NBA careers are not written. Zaire could still become a useful NBA player. Of course, Roddy might. He's close. Roddy's close. If he's my 10th man, I'm not that angry. I'm fine with it. Conchar might find his role again on another team. But we've learned that those guys are not the answer, really. You're going to need more if you want to compete at the highest levels. The other silver lining, it's not, again, I don't know if it's a silver lining or not. It's the, we're going to get a pretty good draft pick next year. It's maybe the gap year is the better long-term play for the Memphis Grizzlies. They could still finish 500. They could, sneak into the play-in. I think the odds of making the playoffs, they're remote. But even if you make the play-in and you make the playoffs, you're still going to probably pick like 13th or 14th, but I think it's more likely the Grizzlies have like the 10th pick in the draft. Maybe you have some PTSD over taking Zaire Williams for the 10th pick. But another silver lining is the gap year approach where, all right, we're going to end up with a pretty decent pick long-term because Ja and Jaren and Desmond are very, very good and very, very young still. That is a silver lining. Another silver lining, honestly, is that Desmond Bane and Jaren have stepped up. Yeah, we're not winning, and I think you need to take all these stats, all the good stats, all the scoring stats of Jaren with a grain of salt because, like, hey, nobody else can score on the team. He's going to score 40 because everybody else is stinky. And NBA teams, you're going to score 80, 90 no matter what. Somebody has to get the points. So I do take Jaren's impressive scoring numbers with a little bit of, like, I don't know, a wary eye, but they've shown at least that I think they can handle a pretty heavy load. So once Ja comes back, it'll all look great. And now, finally, to Ja Morant. His media availability on Friday, for me, nothing. Nothing was said. It was a whole lot of nothing. He said, it's been horrible watching the team. I agree with you, Ja. I think he meant it a different way. He said he feels guilt about how poorly the season has gone for the Grizzlies because of, him not being there. He acknowledged that his words are meaningless. He just has to prove it to people that he can stay out of trouble. He did not express any form of regret or guilt about his actions, which is fine, I guess. He doesn't have to do that for me or for anyone else. He just kind of said, it's been a process, and he didn't go into great detail about what he's been up to. He didn't go into great detail about what Adam Silver had to say to him. He's just said he's excited to be back, and he's excited to get back and play in front of the fans. And that's what we're all hoping for. The Grizzlies have this game on Monday night at the Thunder. That is not a game I'm looking forward to or very optimistic about. The Thunder are really, really good, and I imagine the Grizzlies are going to be so focused on the Pelicans game the next night, it might be kind of ugly. Maybe not. Maybe the team will come out and surprise us and play well on Monday night. But then the second night of a back-to-back, you have the game where Ja Morant makes his debut against the New Orleans Pelicans. That's a tough game, too. The Pelicans are pretty good. They're playing well. You get another one of those Ja Morant, Zion Williamson matchups. It's a national TV game. Early tip, 6:30 p.m., we're having watch parties, I believe, in Memphis, and definitely I'm hosting one in Nashville. Come to Noble's Beer Hall on Tuesday night for Ja's first game. And I don't think the Grizzlies will be favored, and maybe Ja will be rusty. I mean, we all have dreams of him coming out like being shot out of a cannon. If you remember, his first games of the season, the last 2 seasons, have been amazing. So maybe he can still do that. It might be a lot harder when everybody else already has 25 games under their belt for Ja to perform at that level. But I guess the season starts then. And then we start thinking about, all right, how good can this team be? Another question, I guess, for the Monday night game against the Thunder, it's like, all right, Derrick Rose, he went out with injury. And how many games is Derrick Rose going to miss now? And I don't know, is it another Gilliard game on Monday night? How do they run the rotation in that one as they face a very good Thunder team? And then once Ja comes back, Marcus Smart's been doing, apparently, I think he's been doing 5-on-5 work this weekend. So maybe, next week will also give us Marcus Smart. It's supposed to. That was always the schedule. It was 3 to 5 weeks. The 5 weeks are going to be up next week. So Ja Morant and Marcus Smart should join the team. They should make everything look a lot better. Maybe we get to see the vision of what they dreamed about this offseason when they made the Marcus Smart acquisition. So far, it's been an unmitigated disaster. Not just the season, but the Marcus Smart transaction. I mean, you look at the pick that was sent in that. One of the picks that was sent was that Golden State Warriors 2024 top 4 protected pick. That pick is going to be amazing. Looks like. I mean, that pick is going to be right around where the Grizzlies end up this year. The Warriors could very easily miss the playoffs this season. And, you traded for Marcus Smart, and your thought was, all right, he'll definitely help, for a while Ja Morant's out. Well, guess what? I mean, he hasn't. Marcus Smart's only been available for 2 wins so far. And, yeah. So far, that deal has been regrettable. And it's not that the deal was made for the first 25 games. The deal was made to help the Grizzlies win playoff series. Well, again, whoops. It seems unlikely the Grizzlies even get to a playoff series in this year 1 of the deal. So, if you could undo that deal, I think 100% would. You just want those picks back. You would be better off this year right now with Tyus Jones. You could trade Tyus Jones once Ja Morant gets back. But again, that's water under the bridge. You couldn't have known all that stuff when you made the deal. Well, anyways, I think that's it for this episode. Thanks as always for listening. Apologies to everyone who had their hearts ripped out on Friday. That sensation was bizarre. Watching Dillon Brooks do all that, I was happy for Dillon Brooks. Happy for him. The way it ended so terribly. His playoffs were so awful. And I felt bad for him in the playoffs. It hurt our team. It hurt me as a fan. So I was happy that Dillon got this. I feel obviously sad and upset it came against my team, but that was something. I actually reached out to Rob Fisher because on the postgame show, I thought Rob looked sick. I was like, oh no, I think Rob's really broken up about this. Rob let me know that he apparently was trying to just hold back a cough. He didn't have a mute button on the post-game show, so he was trying to hold back a cough. So he wasn't about to vomit. He was just, again, as a professional, didn't want to cough on air. But yeah, that was a tough game. We've gone through it, guys. We've made it through 24 of the 25 games of Ja Morant suspension. Hopefully, we're going to come out the other side no worse for wear. I feel very much worse for wear. Anyways, thanks for listening. If you want to support the show, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Join me there. Join our Slack channel where we talk about Grizzlies stuff. And you get access to bonus content if you join the Patreon, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you're interested in Underdog Fantasy, use that promo code FBBF. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great Monday. Go Grizz.